We are back at No Hedge for week 4 of the NFL action. As always, I'm your host, Colin. With me is my co-host, Bog, and the boys are feeling good after week 3. We came out, absolutely slaughtered the slate last week with our picks. I ended up being 5-1 on the week, which puts me at plus 4 units. And on the season, that gets me to a 9-7-1 record, up 3 units on the season. And Bogdan last week went 4-1 on his picks, which was a plus 3 unit gain. And on the season, that puts you at 8-5, up 5 units. So needless to say, the boys are feeling really good after week 3. We're hoping we could carry some of that momentum into week 4, keep the winners coming in, and without further ado, before we get into our picks, let's give you just a really quick recap of our week 3 picks that we did end up hitting on. My first pick was San Fran minus 10 against the Giants. This was a 2-unit play. This was an easy win. The Giants were hanging around early, but the Niners were way too much for them to handle. So that was an easy cover there. Easy 2-unit winner. Our first joint pick was the Bills minus 6.5 against Washington. That was an absolute blowout. There's not much else to say. Sam Howell got destroyed by that Buffalo defense. Easy cover there. Bogdan's first pick was the Lions minus 3 against the Falcons. Everybody was in that honeymoon phase with the Falcons, but all in all, like you said last week, the Lions had a better roster. They ended up handling the Falcons in that spot and winning comfortably. And then one of my personal picks, again, was Miami minus 6.5 against Denver at home. And what else is there to say? They set an NFL record for 70 points scored in a single game. That was crazy. That was the definition of a no-sweat bet. So winning that one, could have fell asleep, woken up after that game, and would have been no harm, no foul. Bog, one of your other personal picks was the Pats minus 3 against the Jets. Like you said last week, Bill Belichick historically bullies his division rivals in these spots. And with Zach Wilson behind that struggling O-line, even though it was a closer game on the scoreline, it was an easy cover for the Pats in that situation. And coming to the one lowly scumbag loser team that gave us one loss on our week 3 slate was the Dallas Cowboys against the Cardinals. That was not only one of our joint picks, but it was also our survivor pick of the week. So needless to say, if we already didn't hate Dallas before being Giants fans, this team sucks. I understand that they lost Diggs and they had a bunch of O-linemen out, but there is no excuse to lose to that Cardinals in that spot with all the hype that's been surrounding this team. So Dak, Mike McCarthy, look yourselves in the mirror. You're losers. You better turn it around because that was an embarrassing game. At the very least, they should have hit our survivor pick. So that was just an absolute joke. But again, we had a good week. So we're going to forget about that filth trash organization. Screw the Cowboys. Another one of our joint picks was the Seattle Seahawks minus 4.5 against the Panthers. And this was a little sketchy because we thought Bryce Young was going to be playing. Andy Dalton ended up starting, but it was still too much for that Carolina Panthers defense against that explosive Geno Smith-backed Seattle offense. So they came away with the easy cover in that game as well. And to end the week 3 slate, I had the Rams at plus 6.5. I grabbed it earlier in the week before the line moved down to plus 3 against Cincinnati in Cincy. And hey, this is the NFL. Sometimes your bets could look like they have absolutely no chance of life going into the fourth quarter and going into those final minutes. But thankfully, Stafford was able to lead a fourth quarter drive on their last possession to get them in the end zone and get me the backdoor cover. And hey, a win's a win. We'll take it however we can get it. So, Bog, obviously with everything I've said, we had an easy week 3 slate, a lot of no sweat winners, but still, let's hear what you have to think coming out of week 3, going into week 4 here.
Yeah, and besides that filthy game that the Cowboys displayed, everything was easy, right? Covered, easy covers. I mean, San Fran, Bills, Seattle, Pats, it was easy covers all around. But let's go back to Dallas for a second because they like to talk nonsense on the Commanders and the Giants for barely beating the Cardinals. Then you come out and you don't lose. They lost by 2 possessions. I mean, granted, they were moving the ball well, just couldn't finish in the end zone. The worst thing about that is, we didn't cover the spread, but we got eliminated from Survivor, and that was just horrible. So Dallas, you gotta. I don't know what you gotta do, but you gotta do something to redeem us. Maybe in the future you can help us win some bets, but gotta move past that. Overall, good week. Gotta move on, and let's move on to week 4.
Yeah, no, we're feeling good coming off week 3. So let's jump right into these week 4 picks. And starting out, this is going to be one of my personal picks for the week. We're going to the Thursday night football game. The Detroit Lions are going into Green Bay to Green Bay to play the Packers. Sorry about that. The line opened up at -1.5. It's still sitting at that figure. And right now, with the sharp money, it's looking like a coin flip for the sharps. The lines are getting 55% of the bets and 53% of the money. So they're thinking this game could really go either way. Now, for the reason I'm back in this game, I know this is a division game. Division games are always tough. You want to lean towards the home dog in these positions. But personally, I see a little bit of value on the Lions money line in this spot. I think the Lions have the better offense. Yes, Jordan Love has looked really good. Yes, they're getting back Aaron Jones and Christian Watson potentially. But even with those playmakers coming back on the offensive side of the ball, I think the Lions already have the offensive firepower to one-up the Packers offense. And from what we saw with the Saints last week, playing the Packers in Green Bay, when you're able to get pressure to Jordan Love, he's missing throws. He doesn't look too confident back there. That was the first time he really got pressured in the backfield. So I'm banking on the Detroit defense coming out and having a strong showing on the road here at the Thursday night game. So I'm backing the Lions in this spot, especially with these games that are so close to this -1.5. Yeah, I'm taking them on the money line personally. When you're getting good odds at the money line, I like taking who I think is just flat out the better team. I don't care about the home field advantage, all this other talk and nonsense. I think the Lions are the better pick in this situation. So I'm backing them in this spot for a 1.5 unit play in this situation. But Bog, let us know what you think about my pick on the Lions in this spot.
Yeah, I actually don't mind this pick. I can see where you're coming from. It's just a little risky. Obviously playing in Green Bay is always tough. It's a big division game. Both teams are 2-1. Green Bay is probably getting back Aaron Jones and Christian Watson, two big playmakers. Both teams are really good in the trenches. I mean, Detroit O-line, Green Bay O-line are solid. Both D-lines are solid. So it's going to come down who can win the trenches. Obviously, that's every football game. However, here, and this being a big division game, this could go either way, and that's why I'm not touching it. But, we'll see what happens. It's a good Thursday night game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Regardless if the bet hits or not, a great Thursday night football game. Excited to watch it. But we're going to move on to our next game here. This is one of Bog's personal picks. We've got the Falcons playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, this is our first London game of the year. The Falcons opened up at +4.5 on the spread. It has since bumped down to +3, but despite that line movement, the sharp money's currently sitting on the Jags right now. They're getting 52% of the bets and 72% of the money. So, Bog, take us through your pick and why you're backing the Jaguars.
Yeah, I just love the Jags here. I feel like the Jags always play in London. You should call them the London Jaguars, right? I feel like they have success there, if I'm not mistaken. But, I just think coming off that embarrassing loss to a division rival, to the Houston Texans, I feel like everybody expected the Jags to win that one. And the Texans are a good football team, right? Nothing against C.J. Stroud and that team. But I think that's still a game that Jacksonville should have won. They're going to be hungry. They're going to be embarrassed. They want to come out. You want to put points early. I think Atlanta, they can run the ball, but they can't really throw it. I know, Jacksonville defense is they're solid against the run, not so much against the pass. So we'll see what happens there. I just think Jacksonville is a way better team. They're going to want to redeem themselves after that loss. I think they're going to get it done in London.
Yeah, and with what we saw against the Lions, it does look like Desmond Ridder, it really relies on the run game with that offense. He had a couple questionable throws in that game, so I like your assessment there. I definitely think that if that Jags defense is able to hamper that Atlanta run scheme, they could have a very easy bounce back game in this spot. And especially with the NFL and the way these games go, it is always good to buy in on a team that just got an embarrassing loss, especially against a division rival in the Texans. So I really like you laying the Jags at this spot. I see other value in other places, so I'm not personally taking it. But like I said, I see where you're coming from for this pick. And again, London Jaguars, they always play well over there. So who knows? It could be an easy win, could be a tough sweat, but I like your pick in this spot. And moving on to one of our first joint picks of the week, we have got the Minnesota Vikings going into Carolina to play the Panthers. This game opened up at -1.5 in the Vikings' favor and has since jumped up to -3.5. And in this game, the sharp money backs up that line movement. The Vikings are getting 61% of the bets and 80% of the money. And hey, let's switch it up here. Bog, since this is a joint pick, you start us off. Why are you betting the Vikings in this spot? And especially with what we've seen from the Panthers, even though there's a little bit of a question mark on whether Bryce Young or Andy Dalton's been playing, why are we not worrying about that? We're laying the points now, and we're taking the Vikings in this spot.
Yeah, quite frankly, I don't care who plays QB. I don't care if it's Bryce Young. I don't care if it's Andy Dalton. I know they're both 0-3, but that's a different 0-3, right? You got the Vikings, who one of the top offenses in football, really high-powered offense, and then you got the Panthers, who are just a walking embarrassment. I mean, they suck. Let's be honest. I don't care who's playing under center. Honestly, if I'm the Panthers, I'd rather have Andy Dalton playing because he gives them a better chance to win. However, I know you got the QB first overall. You want to let him develop. I totally get it. But the Vikings are just levels ahead of this team. If they lose to the Panthers, I mean, there got to be a fire sale in Minnesota because that's going to be embarrassing. I'm taking the Vikings here. I'm taking them with confidence, too. There should be a no-sweat bet.
Yeah, absolutely taking them with confidence in this position. So, especially with this game, one of the best reasons for me to back this team is that we just saw a pretty much clone of this Vikings team play Carolina at home, and that was the Seahawks last week, one of our personal picks. We were back in that Seattle offense. We knew that they just had the edge over Carolina's offense, even with Andy Dalton in the game. And then obviously defensively, they have some rough patches. And I think that is, again, like I said, a perfect mirror to what we've seen with the Vikings this year. They have one of the most prolific offenses in the league right now. But on the other end, the other end of the football, the Vikings have one of the worst defenses right now, constantly conceding over 24 points a game. I just think despite everything I just mentioned with that defense, again, the Panthers are also 0-3, and even with their defense having some bright spots here and there, that offense just isn't able to do anything right now. Yes, they were able to put up 27 points against Seattle last week, but again, with the chance of Bryce Young playing, we're jumping on the Vikings early in the spot, grabbing them at -3.5. I actually bought them down, got rid of the hook, took them at -3, just in case, especially with the NFL. You never know when shady shit's going to happen. So I like having the Vikings -3 in the spot. I think this offense is going to come out hungry, being 0-3 on the year. Kirk, especially with the season they had last year, this guy, I mean, he's already slinging the rock. You're telling me he's not just going to come out and throw not recklessly, but he's going to be aggressive this week. He's already got a great receiving core. They've got a decent run game when they're able to get it developed. Don't sweat this pick. Take the Vikings in the spot. Fade the bad team. Fade the team that's potentially going to have Bryce Young on the field, which it's an absolute embarrassment that they went all out for Bryce Young. He was easily, in my eyes, the worst pick of all of those rookie quarterbacks coming into the season. So for everything we just said, back the Vikings in this spot. Don't overthink this pick because they could easily win in a blowout. And like we said last week, if you think a team has a chance to win by at least 2 to 3 scores, then why not lay them at a weird line with the hook at -3.5? But moving on to one of my next picks is the Buffalo Bills at home against the Miami Dolphins. This game opened up at +3.5 in the Dolphins' favor and has since jumped down to +3. And right now, despite that line movement, again, sharps are seeing value on the Bills in the spot. They're getting 42% of the bets and 75% of the money. And I align with the sharps in this position. I think that, yes, obviously, from what we said earlier, this Dolphins offense is amazing. Tua looks more confident than ever throwing the ball. He's airing it out. He's got a great passer rating, few incompletions on a day-to-day basis. His turnover game is looking perfect right now. He's not putting the ball in harm's way. Raheem Mostert also looks amazing running behind that Miami offensive line. But all in all, I'm looking at these two teams and I'm comparing them head-to-head. I think that the Bills offense can easily keep up with this Miami offense, and then it comes down to the defenses. And yes, the Dolphins have looked really good, but they're still giving up close to over 20 points a game on the season so far. So if we do a direct comparison here, you take out that first loss of the season for the Bills when they went down to the Aaron Rodgers-less Jets in MetLife. That game ended up coming down to Josh Allen putting the ball in harm's way. He had 4 total turnovers on the game, 3 picks and a fumble. Ever since then, Josh Allen has looked electric. He's clearly reviewing tape, realizing he has to stop making these risky throws. Keeping the football is one of the biggest advantages you have in the NFL. Don't put the ball in harm's way. Be smart with the football. And overall, I think that this Bills defense is going to give this Dolphins offense a little bit of their first test of the season. I think this is a great spot to back the Bills. I'm taking them at -2.5. I got them just before the line movement to 3. So, Bog, let's hear. What do you think about me backing the Bills in this spot? Because I know you're a little bit sketched out in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind betting the Bills here. I mean, I feel like that's decent value here. Obviously, they're the favorite. However, after coming off 70 points, I think that's kind of hard to bet against the Dolphins. However, always I will say this: I'm actually curious to see how the Bills are going to look against the Vic Fangio Dolphins defense. So, that's going to be a big test. I want to see if Miami can keep the production they had as last week. I want to see if they can keep running the ball with Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert. They put up almost 300 yards rushing, put up over 700 yards total. So I want to see, which team's going to win. It's definitely the game of the week. I'm not touching it because it's way too risky. Huge division game, right? Standing implications, everything. But Bills -3. I mean, we'll see. It's in Buffalo. That's a big advantage for you.
Yeah, and getting the Bills at home -3, I'm just figuring this is almost the same as laying them at the money line. Get them at a field goal. I could see this being a tie game coming down to a final possession. And I think Josh Allen, if he's more disciplined, like what we've seen with the last couple weeks, and the fact that the Bills defense over the last 2 weeks is averaging about 6 points conceded, I just think defensively, the Bills have the edge. Offensively, they stack up pretty similar. Obviously, Tyreek is a absolute freak of nature. That guy is easily one of the best receivers in the NFL right now. So yeah, it's a little bit of a sketchy spot, but for everything we just mentioned, I don't mind laying the Bills in this spot, and seeing that the Sharps are on my side is a little bit reassuring. So I'm not going to overthink this game. I think the Bills have the edge at home, so I'm backing them in this spot. Now, moving on to one of your next picks, Bog. We have got the Bengals going into Tennessee to play the Titans. This game opened up at -4.5 in the Bengals' favor and has since shot down to -2.5. So a little bit of contention in the Bills in this position since we're seeing that line movement. And the sharp money reflects that. The Bengals are getting 77% of the bets and 53% of the money. I don't know if I just said Bills there by accident. Bengals, the Bs are mixing me up right now, these AFC B teams. But Bog, give us your analysis on the Bengals in this spot and why you're backing them at -2.5 on the road against the Titans.
Yeah, well, we watched the Bengals yesterday. Obviously, they had a really slow start, right? They could have lost that game. They would have been 0-3. However, they're 1-2. They got their offense going. They got Jamar Chase going, right? Burrow still might not be 100% from that injury. However, they're trending in the right direction, right? You got teams like the Steelers who are 2-1. You got the Browns who are 2-1. Really strong defensive teams. Ravens are 2-1, right? You don't want to fall behind in that division. I think the Titans, they look pretty bad against this Browns team, last week. If the Bengals want to, be in contention for that, AFC North title, and I know it's early, they have to win this game. I think this is a game they can easily win. Obviously, I can see the appeal for the Titans. They're a gritty team, but Bengals -2.5. Hopefully, I don't sweat this one, but I'm feeling pretty confident in them.
And I see why you're confident in this pick. Everybody keep in mind, the Bengals defense is legitimate. They were an elite defense last year. Coming into the season, obviously, the first couple weeks have been tough for them, but I think that had a lot more to do with the offensive side of the ball rather than the defensive side of the ball. This is one of the struggles when your offense isn't able to get going. You're constantly punting the ball away and putting your defense back out on the field. So I think you got to look at the first two games for the Bengals with a grain of salt. I think last night's performance against the Rams was much more telling of what you'll get from the Bengals defense. And from what we saw last night, as long as the Bengals offense can play disciplined and take care of the football, they can easily win these games. And again, the Titans this week against the Browns, they got absolutely trampled. And the Browns have a very similar makeup on their team. Their offense hasn't really been rolling, too efficiently to an extent. I know they're putting up points, but again, those points are put up on the backs of that Cleveland Browns defense, and seeing them absolutely smoke the Titans, I think this could be a carbon copy situation where the Bengals might be able to do the same thing. Now, again, Vrabel, I definitely think he's going to bounce back a little bit in this spot, but I mean, you're getting them at -2.5. I definitely think I could see the Bengals win this one by a touchdown. So I see where you're coming from in this game and understand why you're back in the Bengals. I definitely like that pick, but personally, I'm not jumping on that one with you. But moving over to one of my picks, I am taking the Los Angeles Rams going into Indy to play the Colts. This game opened up at +1. The spread is now sitting at +1.5. And the sharp money, although it's not too heavily away from the bet metrics, which is sometimes what we like to see. That's where the real sharp money comes in. It looks like just overall people are backing the Rams in this position. They're getting 73% of the bets and 72% of the money. So like I said, a lot of favors going and backing the Rams in this position. And that is exactly the mentality I'm taking in this spot. The Colts so far, yes, they have looked strong. If Anthony Richardson comes back this week, I do like what I've seen from him. through the first couple weeks before he got knocked out with that concussion. Just him, giving that rushing threat to that Colts offense is really able to open up the team and, let them settle in and run their game plan. Their defenses obviously look pretty good with what we saw last week against the Ravens. But I dug deeper into the Colts' first 3 games, and it looks like, being 2-1 on the season, their one loss came to a more pass-oriented team in the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I mean, if anybody's been paying attention to the Rams, Matt Stafford loves to have the ball in his hands. He loves to take control of the game. And I think that the Rams are going to come out and just throw the ball all over this Colts defense. They have excelled in their run defense so far, which has been a big reason they've been able to stay in games against the Ravens and why they were able to win handily against the Texans. But I think that this Rams offensive scheme is going to throw them off a little bit. Also, from what I saw last night, that Rams defense looked really strong against the Bengals. Aaron Donald is looking great so far this season. They have a really good rush defense. So all things considered, with how competitive we've seen the Rams play this season, despite the fact that they're 1-2, I think that the Colts have had a little bit of an easier schedule going up against 2 division opponents that are both 1-2 as well. As the Rams, I think that the Colts have gotten away with an easier schedule. They're a more run-heavy team, and I think all signs are pointing to the Rams in this game. I think Stafford's going to have a field day. They're going to move the ball with no pressure, and I think defensively they are going to control this Colts offense. But, Bog, let's hear, what do you have to say for me back in the Rams in this spot?
Yeah, man, honestly, I'm undecided. I like the Rams here, and then I like the Colts also, right? I love Shane Steichen, what he's doing in Indianapolis. I mean, this guy's a genius offensively. The Rams, they've been playing pretty well. I mean, they won, they beat the Bucks. Who did they beat week 1? Was it
Rams beat the Bucks, right?
I think
that was the Vikings.
Either way, the Rams have been looking solid. Their offense, people thought they were like the worst team in that division. However, they've been getting some yards going. Yeah. They've been keeping it close in games, especially against the Bengals. So we'll see what happens. However, Indianapolis with that intricate offense is very dangerous. So I don't like this game. However, we'll see what happens. I don't know.
Yeah, and so week 1, that was a win against the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. So that was obviously a really big win for the Rams week 1. Regardless of that, though, I just really like this offense in this position. So I'm back in the Rams, not even sweating this one out. And to end our week 4 slate here, we have our last joint pick of the week. This is going to be another confidence play for Bog and I. We're coming in at 2 units on this game. We've got the Chiefs opening up at -2 against the Jets in MetLife, and this game quickly swung to -9.5. And right now, the sharp money is all over the Chiefs in this spot. The Chiefs are getting 85% of the bets and 86% of the money. And Bog, I'll let you start us off for our joint pick again. Why are we back in the Chiefs with no sweat in this position?
Yeah, and Chiefs are just a better team. I mean, even if Aaron Rodgers was playing, I would probably still take the Chiefs. I know the line wouldn't be as big as it is. However, they're better offensively. Their defense is honestly just as good. They have a very, very underrated defense, I think. So Sunday night, I mean, do we really trust Zach Wilson? I don't. I think the Chiefs should steamroll them. Hopefully it's not the same situation as just happened in Dallas, losing to the Cardinals with that spread. But I don't think the Chiefs are they're not going to let us down here.
No, I definitely don't think they're going to let us down. With what we saw last week against the Bears at home, I think we're going to get a little bit of that inexperienced young quarterback play that we saw out of Fields, out of Zach Wilson. This Jets offensive line sucks. They stink. I understand everybody is throwing so much hate at Zach Wilson, but you have to keep in mind, when you have no time to sit back and go through your reads, go through your progressions, you're never going to be able to move the ball efficiently as an offense. And yes, if Rodgers was back there, obviously him and his veteran talent was going to be able to find ways to make it work for this Jets offense. But with Zach Wilson being the head of that offense, this is just a no-brainer. The Chiefs, not only offensively, now, I mean, again, I don't want to, praise them too much, on the offensive side of the ball, they really haven't looked themselves this year. And I think that has to do with, some of these younger receivers coming into their system and really having to get comfortable with such a prolific guy like Mahomes, throwing them the football, being on the same page as him. There's been a lot of drops, obviously. But even that being said, with what we saw last week against the Bears, a good fluff game like that is huge for confidence. And even though the Jets have a really strong defense and they have been whittled down by the fact that they have no offense on the opposite side of the ball to help them out, I think that's going to be the exact game script in this situation. I think the Chiefs offense might undergo a couple stops to this talented Jets defense. But again, this Chiefs defense is also pretty elite. They have playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. They are going to be in Zach Wilson's mitt all game. I think they're going to penetrate that Jets offensive line with ease. And in this spot, getting the Chiefs at -9.5, under 10 points, I think that's a comfortable position to lay on a big favorite like the Chiefs when they're so talented on both sides of the ball. Whereas the Jets, yeah, they've got a good defense, but again, like I said, that offense stinks right now. So this is one of those 2-bet confidence plays. Don't overthink this pick. Back the Chiefs with confidence in that spot. This is our only 2-unit play of the week. We're really feeling good about this one. So especially ending off our slate with the Chiefs is huge. But Bog, you do have one more personal pick for our week 4 slate, and that is the Giants at home against the Seattle Seahawks. This game opened up at +1 in the Seahawks' favor. It has since jumped to +1.5, and right now the sharp money is all over the G-men. The public bettors are hitting the Seahawks right now, but with what we're seeing in the money percentages, the Giants are getting the actual bets that matter in this spot. They're getting 35% of the bets, but 77% of the money. So the Sharps are seeing a lot of value in our G-men this week. Now, I want to back our G-men with you. Love them more than anything in life. But from what I've seen so far in the season and how I know the Seahawks offense can come up and turn up at any point, I'm personally staying away from this one. But let's hear why you're backing our boys in this position.
Yeah, man, I'm sprinkling the G-men Monday night. I'm feeling confident in this one. Obviously, Seattle's a tough team. They can easily win, so don't get me wrong. However, I'm taking a little bit of a risk here. I'm going on the Giants. I just think they're getting some playmakers back. They got the Dolphins on deck. They got the Bills on deck. You don't want to, fall down to 1-3 than having to face those high-powered teams. So I think Dable's going to get this team ready. I just think they're going to come out Monday night at MetLife, get a win.
Yeah.
Why not? You know what I mean? So I'm taking Giants money line here, being hopeful a little bit, but, also a little bit confident too.
Yeah, and I think this, if you're going to back the G-men from what we've seen through the first 3 weeks, this is the perfect matchup at home to get a win under their belt. Look at Seattle's defense right now. They suck. I mean, they are giving up almost 27 points per game right now. They are an absolute screen door to any offense from what we've seen so far, even Andy Dalton and the Carolina Panthers. Now, yes, the Giants, outside of that second half against Arizona, our offenses look pretty weak. But we've also gone up against Dallas with Diggs and all their starters healthy. And then the 49ers in San Fran. They have had 2 really, really tough tests. One of them on the road, one of them at home. But again, iron sharpens iron. And I think in this position, going up against such a soft defense like Seattle, I think this is a good bounce back spot for the Giants. From what we saw from our defense last week, they came out and played pretty strong initially against the Niners. Their problem was they were giving up some BS screenplays to the Niners in 3rd and 9, 3rd and 13 spots where you should be getting off the field and getting the ball back in Daniel Jones' hands, but giving up big plays on those long 3rd downs just absolutely gutted us. There was also some penalties that did not go in our favor in that game. So from what we've saw from the Giants defensively, and then knowing that this is a good bounce back spot for the offense, I definitely see why you're laying them. But again, my Giants have hurt me a little bit so far this season. So personally, I'm staying away on this game, but Bog, I definitely see the value. I'm going to be right next to you for that game, rooting with our boys, and hopefully we're laying a 1.5. So if they get the cover, they should be winning. Or if we get the win, they should be covering in that position. So I definitely see where you're coming from for that pick. Now, normally this would be where our survivor pick is given out for the week. And, us here at No Hedge, we were really excited for our survivor segment. We thought we were going to make a deep run this year. We're idiots for not backing the Chiefs last week against the Bears at home. Instead, we take the Cowboys on the road. Now, I'm not going to walk back any of our assessment from last week. We really, truly believe that the Cowboys were going to come out and slaughter the Cardinals after they had played the Commanders and Giants, who we thought were much weaker opponents. But clearly, Josh Dobbs has got a chip on his shoulder. He's playing like a real NFL quarterback. That offensive line is producing. James Conner is running like a beast, and their defense is generating stops. So, despite all the insults earlier in the show, this is the NFL. I get it. Scumbag, suckbag Cowboys let us down. No surprise there. Of course, we back our division rival, and they let us down. So, unfortunately, no hedge is done for Survivor on the year. Just had to put that in there if you had been watching through the first 3 weeks. It's a shame. It sucks. But again, our entry buy-in to Survivor was $50 a guy, and my 1 unit play is $50. So in just one pick, I can make back that money. Not really worried about it. Obviously devastated to lose that Survivor segment going for the rest of the season, but we don't give a shit. We're going to keep rolling. We're going to keep dishing you winners on a week-to-week basis. Remember, coming off last week, we are feeling hot. I was 5-1. Bogdan was 4-1. We are up money on the season so far. We want to keep the winners rolling. So thank you so much for tuning in to week 4 of No Hedge. And again, please like, comment, subscribe, engage with us. Tell us if you like some of our picks. Tell us if you think we're idiots. If you're a Cowboys fan, tell us off in the comments for all the slander we've thrown at your team this week. We could really use the engagement to prop up this channel, because if you've been following along, I'm up 3 units on the year. Bog's up 5 units on the year. We're absolutely killing it with our picks. We're making our viewers money. So please tune in on a week-to-week basis. We're going to be coming back next week for week 5, hopefully, like we said last week, with a chip on our shoulder and another strong showing. So again, thank you for watching, and we will see you next week here at No Hedge.